try this again.
Groups currently posed to Rwanda is not big enough to justify the reaction that we've seen from Rwanda and M23 with this latest rebellion. Rwanda is also certainly interested in the minerals that are in the eastern DRC, but this alone doesn't justify, again, the kind of the latest uptick in fighting that we've seen. So there's definitely a lot at play here. In addition is what Uganda is doing a little bit further north in the eastern DRC, and the competition between Rwanda and Uganda, and then as well, like I mentioned, the Congolese president coming in on a very anti-Rwandan platform. So ultimately, Rwanda just wants to protect its sphere of influence in the eastern DRC.
So that was Liam Carr, Africa team lead at the think tank, the American Enterprise Institute based in Washington, D.C. And you've been reacting to this story. Are you, Makwak Lam from South Sudan, Rumbek in South Sudan, has got in touch saying, let the Rwandan government and the DRC government finish the issue of the M23 to bring peace to vulnerable people in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Lots of your messages coming in. Do continue with those. Thanks for them.
No, it's quarter to the hour. It's great pleasure, great joy to introduce the sports as a fan. Arsenal went to free kick heaven on Tuesday.
However, it's Declan Rice who hits it. And doesn't he hit it? Oh, yes, he hits it. It's a terrific strike. The banner said, make it happen. And Declan Rice has done exactly that. Oh, what a hit from Declan Rice. Declan Rice runs now, hits it right footed. Rice, baby! Oh my word! Two absolute belters! Right footed, top right-hand corner. Unbelievable.
Yeah, they were absolutely sensational second-half strikes from Declan Rice to give the Gunners a 3-0 lead against the mighty Real Madrid. And then it got better. Mikel Merino sweeping home and giving the icing on the cake. 3-0 in the first leg quarter-final. Next week it heads to the Bernabeu. The Gunners producing an absolutely sensational performance. Here's their manager, Mikel Arteta.
We haven't scored a direct free kick since September 2021. So it's been a long time. So to score 2 goals in 12 minutes of that magnitude, of that quality from the same player, a player that has never scored a free kick before in his career. I mean, what are the odds? But I'm a big believer. I think the crowd played something with the energy that they put in, and it helped us massively to win the game.
Yeah, it's crazy because, as Arteta said, Rice has never scored a free kick in his entire career, but he has been a huge reason as to why Arsenal are so good from set pieces. His corners have been horrible to face all season, so it's not that much of a surprise. The tie, over, right? Nearly, not quite, according to Real boss Carlo Ancelotti.
If you look at the game tonight, there is no possibility, but football is changed. Never expected, no one expected that Rice scored 2 goals on set pieces and he scored 2 goals on set pieces tonight. So football, everything can happen. We have to believe, we need to have trust, because sometimes, a lot of time in Bernabeu happened.
Ominous warning there from Carlo Ancelotti. In the other game, Inter Milan will take a 2-1 lead back to Italy when they face Bayern Munich in the second leg of their Champions League quarter-final. It was a brilliant away performance by Inter. Here's their manager, Simone Inzaghi.
Sono felice, siamo...
I am happy. We are happy. We played a great game. In my opinion, we shouldn't think about the result. In the type of performance we put against a really great opponent. We played well technically, but we're always playing together as a team. We played a great game. There will be another one in 7 days at the San Siro. It will have to be great, because this performance needs to be followed up.
Bayern boss Vincent Kompany still believes his side can turn things around.
I can only speak from experience. We have lost 2-1, and there's nothing I can do to change that now. But it wouldn't be the right thing to feel right now that this 2-1 was a reflection of us not being able to win this game. It's not what happened today. But the result is for Inter. At half-time, well done to them. And next week, we still have full belief we can win that.
James, what view did you get of those Declan Rice free kicks? Because they were sensational. sensational from my living room.
They were sensational for the stadium. Yeah, I was incredibly lucky to be there with my 9-year-old son, who had the night of his life. They were incredible, beautiful free kicks. Sense of disbelief for the second one, I think. Can it have really happened again? But it did. Also, did you hear Mikel Arteta saying the fans had a role to play?
They did. Was that you?
Me,
he was talking about you.
Was
Well done.
60,000 people around.
Well done to you.
I can't claim full credit.
Absolutely, yeah. It was such a great performance by you guys, and it must give you a lot of hope going into the second leg next week.
Yeah, look, why not? Anything's possible, right? That's getting that sense on messages too. We've had one from Rex in Malawi. Yesterday I predicted tears for Arsenal. I proved to be a false prophet. Congratulations, Arsenal. Rex says, Nakai Wilson says, nobody in their right mind would ever dream that Arsenal would humiliate Real Madrid 3-0 in a beautiful game. Anything goes? Well, I guess it does. We're going to win the Champions League now, right?
Well, listen, you know, I was predicting a repeat of that final. What was it, 2006, Barcelona?
Arsenal, yeah. We lost that though, but
You did lose
let's
that.
gloss over
Let's
that.
gloss definitely over that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, now the right of women to inherit and own land across the African continent is often guaranteed by the constitution and laws of the land, of the country. But the reality remains that 90% of private land is owned by men, and women continue to be shut out from inheriting family lands. Well, for today's Africa Daily, Alan Kasuja finds out the challenges women face in gaining land ownership with the help of Theodore Toure, a researcher on women's land rights in Sierra Leone, and the first Esther Waramura in Kenya. She is the Global Advocacy Director for the Stand for Her Land campaign.
The statistics are very disparate. In Kenya, for example, less than 3% of women own land alone for agricultural activity, land that is registered in their own name. And that is statistic almost every other country in Africa. Less than 10% of women own land alone. So the statistic is pathetic. And that happened even to my own family. All the land that my maternal family owned was handed over to my only one uncle. My 3 aunties plus my mom got nothing. My uncle has several daughters, and his land, he's handed and then turned 2 sons he has, none to the 6 or 7 daughters that he has.
What's the explanation for something like that? Is it just down to culture or what?
So one is down to culture, that is the customary practices in many African countries. Consider women as people who will move eventually out of their home and get married at different homes, and therefore they do not inherit. The laws have also not been very helpful, because even where the laws have been advanced, laws are not implemented. And when they are being enforced, there is also a contradiction between customary laws and the legal provisions. And many of our constitutions and laws, it had always given customary practices and laws supersede the written laws.
What difference does it make when a woman owns land?
One is that when you own land, you have your own identity. The minute a woman does not have land that she can control and own, she's stripped of her identity. But also, land is a huge productive asset. So when women don't own land, they mean they are denied a very important and key productive asset. But also with land insecurity, we have a lot of food insecurity. So families suffer from food insecurity when women do not own land.
So we've had from Esther Moore now, little land women. all and how shutting women out from land ownership has serious repercussions for individuals and their families. Now, let's focus on one country in West Africa, Sierra Leone, to see how the situation is there. Bankole Theodore Toure is a PhD candidate at the University of Lagos who focuses his research on women's land rights in his home country.
The leadership structure in most communities is mostly male-dominated. So you see men at the helm of land management processes. There have been some major reforms in terms of legislation. First is the Gender and Women's Empowerment Act. But there are limitations to this act because it does not include family property or chieftaincy property or communal property. And then it's very difficult for you to be able to match legal provisions as against the reality on the ground. Society have not been able to come to terms with the fact that women to have right to inherit property and have the right to even own property.
Are there any case studies that you've come across that illustrate just how complicated this situation is?
Yes. Often you see disputes arises after the husband's death when his family challenge the widow to inherit his right. Let me just give a brief narration. This woman is from a land-owning family, and she narrated a story as thus.
I'm the oldest of all of my cousins. I do not have a husband, a mother, or a father. I run a small business to support myself. I'm not respected. I'm not consulted on anything to do with land. They have done a lot of things with the land, but I'm not included in discussions. And I have to beg for land from the smallest child in the family.
Let's find a new
My family members have mocked me in this community. I have no security or protection from anybody. Even if I have a case to inherit land, I will end up in jail, or worse.
It's the same story for many other women, including women who are migrant women. So another migrant woman narrated a story as thus.
I'm separated from my husband. He left me over 2 years ago with 2 children. He's not made any contact, not provided anything for the children, or showed any concern for them. I have lost my right to land because my husband is not around, and his family have said they will not give me any right to land. I have scars from those fights with my husband's family. I'm not educated, and I cannot go back to my family because my father said marriage is not a bed of roses. So I have to bear whatever condition I find myself in. I have no money, no livelihood, no land, and no one to help me.
For migrant women, for single women, for women from landowning families, for women who are even married to disabled men, they all too have different challenges when it comes to inheritance.
Listening to the Africa Daily from the BBC World Service with me, Alan Kasuja, and today we're looking at the issue of land ownership for women in Africa, or rather, lack of it. Let's rejoin the discussion with Esther Mwiru from the Stand for Her Land campaign. Does she think attitudes are changing to the idea of women inheriting and owning land?
Yes, thanks to many groups of women in the community who have realized the benefit of having owned land themselves. For example, I've worked with a lot of women in the Resoi community in Nakuru, and they were able to buy land, and from the amount of land that they bought, they are able to use that land sustainably and productively. Those women who were living in shanty houses, today they are living in 3-bedroom houses where they have running water in the houses, so they have decent houses. These women are able to pay quality education for their children. Some of these children, over 10, 12, 15 years, these children have managed to go to university and are getting good jobs, meaning that you increase the capacity of families to get income. One of the other things that we are doing is doing this awareness at the school level so that as boys and girls grow, this is ingrained as they become adults. So we are seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, but the work to be done a lot. We are far from achieving much which we can celebrate.
And you can hear more on this topic. All you need to do is search for BBC Africa Daily in all your usual places that you access your podcasts. You'll get plenty of our other stories there. This is Newsday on the BBC World Service with James Cotnell and me, Lucas Burak. Stay with us.
On the campaign trail, Donald Trump made cognitive testing an issue, even after President Biden dropped out.
We should have cognitive tests for anybody that runs for president.
But how much will President Trump share about his fitness now? We'll listen to how he and his doctors have talked.
Sorry about that, guys. That's on the radio, on ATS radio, talk show.
Tomorrow morning from 5 to 9 on Public Radio 89.5.
Support for Public Radio Tulsa is provided by the Kendall College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Tulsa, preparing students for life and leadership for 130 years. More at artsandsciences.utulsa.edu.
Public Radio 89.5, KWGS, HD1, Tulsa.
Hello and welcome to Newsday on the BBC World Service with Professor Burak and James Cotnell in our London studios.
And I'm Marie Goy in Singapore. Washington has imposed 104% tariffs on some Chinese goods as President Trump praises what's been achieved so far. Beijing refuses to meet Mr. Trump's deadline to withdraw its own retaliatory levy on the US. What will this trade war mean? I'll have the latest.
Also, at least 80 people are dead in the Dominican Republic after a roof collapse at a popular music venue in the capital. We've got reactions from there coming up.
And a report from Ecuador on how cocaine exports hit a record high.
I was there outside the port. I knew the guards, the transport drivers who worked with the shipping containers. Also the CCTV camera supervisors who control the security inside the port.
That's coming up after the news.
Hello, I'm Neil Nunes with the BBC News. The latest phase of Donald Trump's sweeping global tariffs plan has come into effect. About 60 countries dubbed by the Trump administration as the worst offenders will be charged higher import taxes from Wednesday. Included in this round is a massive increase in levies against China. Some Chinese goods will face tariffs of over 100%. More from Peter Bose.
China and the US are at loggerheads after President Trump increased tariffs on its products by another 50% after Beijing refused to drop its retaliatory levies on US goods. China says it's being blackmailed and has vowed to fight to the end. For his part, Donald Trump is making it clear that there are even more levies to come, with what he called a major tariff on pharmaceutical imports. He said it would incentivize drug companies to move their operations to the US.
South Korea has rolled out emergency support for its car industry after the US hit it with 25% tariffs. Seoul says it'll funnel an additional $1.5 billion into the sector, cut taxes on car purchases, and raise subsidies for electric vehicles to boost domestic demand. It also plans to shift exports towards markets in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. Cars are South Korea's top exports to the United States. Ahn Dok-gun is South Korea's trade minister.
The automobile industry is a cornerstone of our economy, supporting 340,000 jobs. Its ecosystem, made up of around 20,000 parts suppliers, would be difficult to recover once disrupted. That's why it's crucial for the public and private sectors to work together to protect it.
Rescue workers in the Dominican Republic say about 100 people died when a roof collapsed at a concert in the capital on Tuesday. Among the dead was the merengue singer Ruby Perez, who was performing at the club. Luis Fajardo is from BBC Monitoring.
Media in the Dominican Republic are pointing out to the fact that there was a fire in this building a couple of years ago, apparently caused by lightning. But of course, there's no official indication yet of what could have been the reason. Of course, there's going to be a lot of investigations, The owner of the nightclub has appeared on national media saying he's fully cooperating with the authorities. But again, at this moment, it is many more questions than answers to what could have happened.
A British study has found that extreme poverty can have as big an impact on the brain development of babies as being born prematurely. Researchers found families with a low income, limited access to education and jobs can cause developmental problems in babies. World news from the BBC. The International Monetary Fund has reached a preliminary agreement to lend $20 billion to Argentina to support President Javier Milei's radical economic plan launched in the beginning of last year. The proposal is expected to be approved in the coming days. The IMF has praised Mr. Milei's reforms, saying his austerity program has stabilized the economy, reduced inflation, and improved social indicators. At least 20 people have died after a fire broke out in a nursing home in China's Hebei province in the north of the country. The blaze started in the late evening in the Chengde city, 200 kilometers from Beijing. It's still unclear what caused it, but an investigation is underway. Remaining residents have been transferred to local hospitals. Ecuador's president says rising worldwide demand for cocaine is fueling a wave of violence in his country as rival gangs battle for control of lucrative drugs routes. Daniel Navarro said Ecuador does not produce the cocaine, but he said about 70% of the product manufactured in neighboring Colombia and Peru is smuggled out of Ecuadorian ports bound for Europe, the US and Australia. Mr. Navarro said the crisis will not end until cocaine use in places like the UK falls.
The whole chain that ends up in UK fund is a lot of violence, involves a lot of violence. So what's fun for a single person, probably 20 homicides on the way.
The British government has secured a deal that will see Europe's first Universal Studios theme park open in 6 years' time. The resort in Bedfordshire is forecast to welcome more than 8 million visitors in its first year. BBC World News.
Thank you, Neil. Welcome to Newsday with James Cocknell and the Quest of Europe. We're on the World Service, the BBC World Service, of course. In a moment, we're crossing to the Dominican Republic to get the latest following that deadly roof collapse at the iconic Jet Set Club. But also this hour, what on earth does 104% look like when we're talking about tax? Mary Coy is in Singapore with the answers for us. And one of the world's largest trading blocs, the EU, continues to deliberate its response to Donald Trump. But also in Europe, the insatiable demand for cocaine is driving violence thousands of miles away on the streets of Ecuador. More details on that shortly.
President Trump has praised his explosive tariffs, saying they are vital for his vision for developing the US economy. His comments came just hours before the latest phase of his taxes came in, including 104% tariffs now on some Chinese goods. Mr. Trump told reporters at the White House that America will be rich again very soon.
We have a lot of countries coming in. They want to make deals over 70. They all want to come in. Our problem is can't see that many that fast, but we don't have to because, as you know, the tariffs are on, and the money is pouring in at a level that we've never seen before. So that whole situation that it was somewhat explosive, but if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be talking the way we're talking right now. It's been amazing what's happened. Sometimes you have to mix it up a little bit.
Well, President Trump's new phase of tariffs, then, just to emphasise, hitting 60 of what he describes as the worst offending countries, have now come into effect. And over the last few days, markets across the globe have lost trillions of dollars as investors react negatively to what they see as uncertainty and instability and a global trade war. Find out more from our business presenter in Singapore, Mariko Oi. Hi, Mariko. First of all, 104% tariffs on China, that's quite something.
It is a whopping figure that many of our listeners might be wondering what that means. It basically means that American companies which want to buy anything that's coming in from China, they have to pay more than double the price that they have been until now. Also, earlier today, the White House has announced that Mr. Trump has signed another executive order affecting shipments below $800. So basically, before today, or in the past, those cheaper shipments did not face any tariffs, but now they're going to even face higher tariffs. And that basically means that's only coming in May, but that's going to affect things like Shein and Temu, those huge Chinese e-commerce giants which have become hugely popular with American consumers, especially younger generation. So those products that were very popular because they were so affordable, they're going to get more expensive as well.
Give us a sense of how some other countries are faring.
Well, it's ironic that some of America's allies and friends in this part of the world are probably suffering even more, if not as much as China. So I'm talking about, for example, Japan. We've been looking at this stock market reaction for almost a week now, and Japan's Nikkei 225 4% tariffs, but also it had that 25% tariffs on all cars imported into the United States. Also, other countries being affected include South Korea. So Seoul has been quite different to how it's approaching these tariffs. They have said that they're not going to retaliate like China has, and instead they're offering emergency policy measures worth some $2 billion to offer to help those car makers in South Korea as well. Taiwan, Vietnam, they've also said that they're not going to retaliate. But also, interestingly, today we've seen at least two central banks in this part of the world, New Zealand first, and then now India, cutting the cost of borrowing. So central banks are lowering the cost of borrowing because of these tariffs. And I think there'll be more pressure on other Asian central banks to cut rates as well.
Margot, on our business desk in Singapore, thank you very much indeed.
So what about Europe? Have they come any closer, decided, agreed on how they're going to deal with this situation? Joining us now from Brussels is Bas Eickhout, who is the Dutch MEP and also co-president of the Greens in the European Parliament. Good morning to you, Minister. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, just very quickly, your reaction to this 104% tariff that's been put on Chinese products?
Well, as you said, it's a whopping number, and it's just more escalating. In the end, no one will win. We only know losers from this, so it's further escalating, and I think we are seeing a rearrangement of global trades, which is very concerning for everyone.
What's it signalling to the EU then? You say concerning for everyone. When you see what President Trump, he says he's going to do it, and it does. What are the signals that the EU are reading?
Turn left.
Well, the EU still hopes that deals are possible. I personally have my doubts, to be very honest, because indeed what we see is that President Trump is just going ahead no matter what. And usually he sees retreating an idea as a sign of weakness. But of course, Europe doesn't want to be blamed for a total escalation of a trade war, so there are still attempts to revert these decisions. But if that doesn't work, then Europe will step up, and will step up its retaliatory measures as well. And I think that's in the end unavoidable if Trump doesn't back down.
You say that the EU will step up. Is there unity, consensus that everyone will agree to this?
Well, as always, it's 27 member states, so they all have their personal wishes. The first reaction, because now we first have the actions on steel, for example, so the first reactions are there, and it's a kind of a minor first action of Europe, very targeted to certain goods. And there already you had some discussions that, for example, Italy and France didn't want to retaliate on American bourbon because they were afraid that then the retaliation would be on European wine. So you always have these kinds of issues. But I do think that everyone is very well aware that if Trump goes ahead with Europe, like he's doing now, and he's not backing down, then there will be tougher measures coming. There is a debate ongoing with the member states. I think Italy is the most complicated country. They are very much dependent of trade with the US. Plus, Prime Minister Meloni thinks she has a very special tie with President Trump, which I don't think she has, or at least not as special as she hopes. So there will be talks, but I think there will be further actions coming if Trump goes ahead as he's doing now.
What's the Netherlands? relationship with Mr. Trump?
Well, we always, of course, we are a trading nation. So I would say after the Brexit, the Netherlands is probably the most pro-Atlantic country left in the EU. But our country is built on trade. And if that is being hit now, then also the Dutch will be agreeing with retaliatory measures, but with pain in our heart, of course.
The EU proposed this idea of zero tariffs. This was the initial salvo that was fired, or rather meeting across the table. What do you make to the reaction from the US to that?
Well, so far there was no reaction. So that makes it clear that I think that attempt was also very clearly to show to the world, but also to show the United States that Europe is ready to negotiate and see what we can do to avoid a global trade war. So far, zero reactions from the United States, and as we see now today on China, he's even going ahead and further escalating. Yeah, at a certain moment, Europe will have to step up its countermeasures, and then we will see, of course, global impacts. But Europe is trying to avoid that. But so far, it doesn't look good, let's be honest.
Mr. Eckert, what you've described is a very complex, nuanced situation. Because it seems to me, as you said, 27 members. You have France and Germany, who have one stance. You then have the other countries who are saying, no, we're going to go it one way. And then you have the sectors, particular sectors that dominate within the EU. This is not going to be easy, is it? What do you think is going to push or rather force the hand of the member states and Ms. von der Leyen? Is it going to be the sectors, as you mentioned? There's bourbon, there's the beauty sector. What is going to dominate here? The country, the GDP, or the sectors of European countries?
I think in the end, it's still the countries together that a reaction will come. So yes, it's not going to be easy, but I do think what Trump is also doing in the end is uniting Europe. We saw that already in the debate on defense and security, what happened to NATO and the challenges there. In total, Trump is showing how unreliable the United States have become and how unreliable the United States are, be it on security, be it on economy. I think what will prevail in the end is the very clear idea of Europe. We are more on our own than ever before, and for that, in order to really work on that, we need to be more united. And of course, that's always a difficulty with 27 member states, but I think in the end what you will see is Europe stepping up also its own industrial policies, like we have seen on security and defense, and really coming up with more of an own idea on how to stimulate our industry, how to make sure that also the path of decarbonization is being met by a competitive industry in Europe, and less reliant on the United States. And that's what you're going to see. And I think people also don't underestimate the power of the EU. We are a biggest trading bloc, and where, of course, the big debate will be is if Europe is going to take measures on the big tech sector. Because Trump is always saying, well, we are importing more goods than we are exporting to the EU. Well, that's correct. But if you look at services, and mainly big tech services, it's of course the other way around. Europe is really much more than the US. So if we're going to hit on that sector, then it's also really going to impact the United States. So that is a measure that we're not going to apply right away, but be assured that the big tech sector is one of the, well, the big retaliatory measures that can be played by the EU, and that will certainly also hurt the United States.
Yeah, your ace, or rather trump card, that EU is holding. We'll see how that pans out. Best I go. Thank you very much indeed.
Rescue workers in the Dominican Republic now say 98 people are confirmed to have died when a roof collapsed at a major concert venue. Hundreds of people were inside the venue, and there is still an attempt to find survivors, but fears the death toll will rise further. The merengue singer Ruby Perez and his orchestra were performing at the iconic Jet Set Club in the capital, Santo Domingo, when the tragedy struck. He was pulled from the rubble alive, but later was confirmed to have died. Also among those killed are 2 former US Major League Baseball stars, Octavio Downtown and Tony Blanco, as well as provincial governor. A short while ago, I spoke to Professor Felipe Coelho from the Pontifical Catholic University of Santo Domingo. He's also a former deputy director of the Senate of the Dominican Republic.
Well, there was a gig. There was a merengue singer, very famous, Ruby Perez, unfortunately deceased during the event. He had a merengue gig, and the building suffered structural failure in the roof. It collapsed into the dance floor, where some 800 people were in the middle of the festivities. And so the count is up to north of 80 dead, many injured, and a lot of bodies yet to be recovered.
Is there any early indication of how this could have happened, how this could have gone so badly wrong?
So this club, the Jet Set, is what it was called. I think it's going to be closed soon. There had been a fire there a few years back, and so the theory that's going around is that the cement had suffered structurally because of the fire. And then, of course, this being a very warm country, very high temperature, there was a number of air conditioners going full blast, vibrating. And then on top of that, of course, there is the music, also full blast. Merengue has a number of different instruments that go into it. You have the brass, you have trumpets, you have saxophones, but also deep bass, so your drums, that sort of thing. And so that whole combination of factors collapsed the roof onto a dance floor full of people.
Was this the kind of place that the sort of elite of society went to, at least the rich of society?
Bruh, I'm literally right there.
Some of the more famous deceased out of it, you have rich businessmen for sure, bankers, so on, big public officials, the governor of the province of Monte Cristi, which is by the border with Haiti. You had one of the planning officials of the mayoralty of Santo Domingo. So yes, definitely upper crust sort of establishment.
Former baseball stars as well, is that right?
Yep, 2 all-stars baseball players. Yes, indeed.
Is there then a real sense of shock right now?
Well, the president has decreed, President Luis Abinader decreed today 3 days of national mourning. And the whole country has been following very closely, minute by minute, what's been going on.
And what is the mood? Is it sadness? Is it anger? How do you characterize it?
It's definitely sadness. Everybody knew people who were there. It's quite somber, really. It's a reminder that when your ticket gets pulled, it's not always with any kind of anticipation.
Did you personally know somebody who was inside?
Oh yeah. And some of them survived, thankfully. Some former colleagues of mine from the Dominican Senate, including a senator. But kids of some of my former bosses, people who had gotten married within memory in the last 1 or 2 years. It's quite tragic.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. A very difficult time, I guess, for so many people. Is it likely, as a result of this, things will change? Will there be an investigation? Will there be tougher regulations on buildings, or will it just perhaps be more of the same?
Well, it is personal for a lot of people, so you would definitely think so. There was one particular person who died. He hasn't been reported properly yet, but I think it's safe at this point to make the assumption is the son of the public works.
Oh well, guys, this how me end it, guys. Hold on. Well, I'm gonna try it again.
So, if there is a crackdown on shoddy buildings, then it's not the best reason, but it might happen.
Professor Felipe Coelho.
Isaac has our sport. Morning, Isaac.
Yeah, forget bend it like Beckham, rip it like Rice should be the name of the movie, as Declan Rice scored 2 absolutely picture-perfect free kicks with Mikel Merino adding another to give Arsenal a 3-0 win over Real Madrid in the first leg of the Champions League quarter-final. In the other game, we saw maybe an even better goal. Lautaro Martinez.
Something just ain't sitting right.
They go into the second leg with a 2-1 lead over Bayern Munich, which puts them in pole position. Two more Champions League quarter-finals to look forward to. We're going to look at the Borussia Dortmund game against Barcelona a little bit later on in the programme, and PSG will take on Aston Villa. More sport from you a little bit later.
Hi, Ivan, thank you. Now, cocaine exports from Ecuador hit a record high last year, making it the world's largest exporter, despite not producing the drug. Ecuador sits between Colombia and Peru, two of the world's biggest cocaine producers. So its ports have become key trafficking hubs, especially to Europe, where demand is rising. It's led to soaring violence. In January this year, it was one of the country's bloodiest on record. The BBC spoke with people across the country, from gang members working for the Albanian mafia to Ecuador's president, who all urge Europe to curb cocaine use. Here's our South American correspondent, Ian.
I'm at one of the biggest ports in Guayaquil. It is absolutely huge and full of shipping containers that are being collected and dropped off by trucks here. These are mostly full of goods headed for Europe.
I was their contact outside the port. I knew the guards, the transport drivers who worked with the shipping containers, also the CCTV camera supervisors who control the security inside the port.
This man is a member of Latin Kings, one of Ecuador's biggest drug gangs. He wanted to remain anonymous, so we changed his voice. He was recruited by a corrupt anti-drugs police officer to help the Albanian mafia, a powerful international criminal network that dominates Europe's cocaine trade. His role? To help them contaminate shipping containers with cocaine.
A mí me llaman y me dicen queremos mandar 500 de Albania.
I got an idea.
So we want to send 500 kilograms of drugs in a container. I will have the contact of the person who was going to move the container, cut it, open it, put it in the blocks of drugs, and put it back.
He told me he regrets the collateral damage of what he's done, but it's not easy to stop.
Todo por amor. Everything is done because of a threat of them. If you don't accept that job the Albanian mafia has asked for, they will kill you.
Ecuador doesn't produce cocaine, but its huge ports provide a shipping route for gangs to traffic drugs to Europe. And it's not just gangs and smugglers involved. Some ordinary workers unknowingly become part of the trade.
The first warning sign was when I went to the warehouse and there was nothing else there.
This truck driver once picked up a shipment of tuna to take to the port.
About 2 months later, the news came out that those containers had been seized in Amsterdam. Inside the tuna containers, apparently there were drugs. We never knew. The issue of contamination is more frequent now. That makes us more vulnerable to those criminals. If you don't accept and you don't contaminate the containers, you have two options. Leave the job or end up there.
All the police at this port who are checking containers and crates of bananas and other goods are heavily armed. And that's because if they find drugs, the chances are somebody who works at this port will be complicit, somebody who will be working with the gangs. So if drugs found, it could trigger a violent incident.
The total amount of drugs has increased.
Major Cueva from the National Police coordinates the researchers here.
Okay, guys, I got an issue. Every time I get in that one spot, it gets stuck.
Here in the country so far, there has been about a 30% increase in seizures headed for Europe in recent years.
The UK has the second highest rate of cocaine use in the world, something they asked Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa about.
I think there should be programs in each country to tackle this issue, to reduce consumption, because the whole chain that ends up in the UK fund is a lot of violence, involves a lot of violence. So what's fun for a single person, probably 20 homicides on the way.
Striking how similar the message from the president is to the message of the drug gang members at the heart of this.
I can back this truck up, guys.
It will always come from here.
I can back this truck up, but every time you get in that one specific spot, it gets stuck. And it's starting to really upset me now.
That report by our South America correspondent, Ian Wells. Now, that's what we're talking a little bit early in the programme. I can talk about nothing else, about Arsenal's win last night against Real Madrid.
I don't think people realise just how croaky you are at the help.
I might have been shouting quite a lot in the stadium last night. We've had a message in from a listener, Paddy Bob Jordan, Uganda, who says, another listener yesterday said that James would be crying today. He did mention there'd be tears of joy. However, James, hurry up, have a drink on me, because those guns will fall silent at the Bernabeu.
Oh, game on!
They're going to come back. We will see. Let's go on that. And indeed, more important stories here at News.
Distribution of the BBC World Service in the United States is made possible by American Public Media, producer and distributor of award-winning public radio content, engaging audiences, creating meaningful experiences, and fostering conversations. APM, American Public Media, with support from LHH. LHH is a global recruitment partner, connecting people to opportunity to make beautiful things happen at work. Learn more at lhh.com/beautiful.
All right, guys. After that backing, after that backing, guys, that was a workout. I believe something was kept getting stuck in between, in front of that trash can and my trailer landing gear. I don't know what it was, guys. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. This is your guy Virtual Gaming. I'm signing out. I'll see y'all on the next video.
Hello, welcome to Newsday from the BBC World Service with Professor Vierak and James Tottenham.
President Trump's hefty